Hello, I'm Susan Cadeau. Thank you for being with us. After July 1st, Oklahomans will begin to feel the impact of widespread budget cuts made by legislators. As the new fiscal year is about to begin, school administrators are expressing increased frustration with claims that funding for common education was held harmless. As it turns out, the elimination of textbook and activity funds will have widespread impact on the classroom.
The state education budget was on the minds of education professionals who this week attended an annual summer conference sponsored by the Cooperative Council for Oklahoma School Administration. Legislative leaders insisted they held the line on education funding, but that was only accomplished by trimming $38 million from the School Activities Fund and eliminating a $33 million line item textbook fund and moving those into the school aid funding formula. Scott Parks is superintendent of Howe Public Schools.
The public believes that we were flat funded. It's not completely accurate. We were not completely just flat funded. Cuts are coming, even on the front end of the year.
Fort Gibson School Superintendent Darrell Glover agrees claims that the legislature held education harmless are misleading.
It was a loss. It doesn't look like a loss, but the line items or activity fund cuts are equivalent to the cuts that we are facing in the budget. Even though he said it's a hold harmless budget, there's actually a cut, and losing those line items really doubles that cuts. They're just not as obvious.
State Superintendent of Public Instruction Joy Hoffmeister says while she appreciates the difficult job the legislature had in filling a $1.3 billion budget hole, she does not favor eliminating the textbook fund.
We were surprised to learn that this is what did occur with the budget, and would never have suggested in any way that this occur apart from being a separate line item.
House Speaker Jeff Hickman issued a statement expressing surprise at Hoffmeister's comments, saying the legislature put $33 million, previously line item, for textbooks into the state aid funding formula so schools can make spending decisions at the local level based on their own unique needs. But Hoffmeister says that decision means some schools won't receive any money for the textbooks or other resource materials.
When funds are in the formula, only school districts that are on the formula receive those funds. So the line item is in place to ensure that all children are served.
30 of Oklahoma's school districts receive no state aid, while 72 receive only limited aid through the funding formula. Hoffmeister says the loss of appropriated funds will pose major challenges for all schools.
For some districts, and in fact this is common, they are using textbooks that are 13 years old because 6 years ago they waited knowing that standards were going to change, and standards have changed a number of times in the last 6 years. So they were waiting to make the purchase until they knew what the new standards were.
The decision also means new textbook adoption will likely be put off for a year.
Our recommendation has been to delay the beginning of the next cycle of adoption for textbooks, which would be math, which we need to do. But because there has been an elimination of the textbook line item, there has to be a pause.
Anadarko Superintendent Cindy Hackney admits her schools will feel the loss of money for new textbooks.
It will mean about $90,000 we won't get. It means that any supplemental materials we were going to purchase, we won't be able to do that. I'll just sit here and tell you there is no school district in the state of Oklahoma that can make it through another year of budget cuts that we just went through without sacrificing programs on the backs of our students.
Sand Springs Superintendent Lloyd Snow echoes those sentiments.
Next year, we're going to start with 51 fewer employees. 51. 21 fewer teachers. We're not going to feel the same, we're not going to look the same, and we're not going to be the same. We're going to have more kids in elementary classes than we've ever had.
COSA Executive Director Ryan Owen says students will also be hurt by the reduction in the School Activities Fund.
For example, alternative education works to support students who are at risk of dropping out. Our ACE remediation program, students who didn't pass those high-stakes tests in order to graduate, that program helps them shore up the skills that they have missed or lack in order to pass those exams.
Several of the superintendents we spoke to also believe cuts for education are not over and think another revenue failure next fiscal year is likely.
We're fully expecting one. I think anybody that looks at numbers can realize that that's a possibility, and you have to plan that way.
We'll probably fail this upcoming school year again, after this past school year of this budget failing. So I think we have a very unstable financial landscape in our public schools. It is not good for our teachers, and it's even worse for our kids.
The State Board of Education held a special meeting Friday to determine where cuts will have to be made to fit the budget numbers.